Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Brittany.
So today I want to talk about something that's big in the news now as we're taping this, a few weeks removed by the time you listen to this, but that is the declassification of government documents and why it's important. So for some backstory, I guess, President Trump, I just choked over my own mouth. Sorry. So President Trump recently declassified documents about the JFK assassination and the Martin Luther King assassination that had been classified since the 60s when they happened. So when you and we don't have that information yet. We should be getting it, I think, tomorrow. But when
Tomorrow?
I believe it's tomorrow, but
Ooh.
I think, which for you guys would be weeks ago. But so when the government classifies documents, what that means is it makes them secret. And so sometimes only some of the documents will be secret. So like you'll have these things released. This happened during 9/11, but then you'll have like chunks of like words blacked out because for some reason it is against America's best interest, whether that is security or whatever, for the people not to see it. And they can use that pretty liberally. So they can pretty much use that to their discretion. They can just say like, well, it's in the country's best interest. It's in the interest of the safety of the country. The people don't know this. Well, that's not great, right? Because as the people who really the government works for us, or they're supposed to, we have a right to know what's going on. There might be maybe some areas where they could probably justify that like, okay, well, we don't want to announce where our military is hiding in case, an enemy gets up. There might be some ways they can talk about this, but as far as just general information, we should be able to know this. And, on the podcast before we had the video, like years ago, we talked about, I think it was like true conspiracies, just some conspiracies that turned out to be true, and also why people are so inclined to believe conspiracy theories. I say conspiracies are not always conspiracies. Sometimes they are, or people hear the word conspiracy and they think that automatically means it's fake when it just means a secret plan.
Yeah. I mean, a conspiracy is a bunch of people working together to do
some plan.
Conspire.
Yes, which happens,
they're working together.
Happens all the time.
Sometimes it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy fact.
Exactly, but people like to call you a conspiracy theorist if you question those things. But so when you classify all these documents which our government does, you actually kind of invite people to start making their own theories as to what happened, right?
Yeah.
Which is what happened with JFK, because there are a lot of things. I'm not going to get into the details of that event. That can be if you want to do that on your own family time. But basically, the stories of what happened in that event were very odd. And this was before people had like camera phones and the internet circulated information. And so it was very easy to keep information away from the people. We just didn't have access. I say we, I'm not that old. I was not born in 1962 when the JFK assassination was. But we didn't have access to all this information. So it was really easy. So there were some things, even back then without all the information, there were some pieces of the puzzle that were not adding up to people. And they were suspicious of it. And there was something called, oh my goodness, I just forgot the name of it. It was at the Warren Commission.
The Warren Commission,
Thank you.
yeah.
I love when I remember things. The Warren Commission, which was like the group of the board, or what would you call it, of people that came, and it was like their job to decide the official narrative.
Yeah, like special investigators that were appointed by Congress or something.
But it's a government board, right? It wasn't like an independent. This is like the government's official thing. And it was the Warren Commission, because the guy Warren was like sat atop of it. He was like the head of it. And they were going to tell us what happened. And there was a lot of real fishy things going on there. And there was a lot of classified documents that we were not allowed to see. But the government says, trust us, we promise. We're going to give you all the information, but we can't tell you the details. And I don't like that, right? In our modern history, this has happened a lot with the war on terror and things like that, but also 9/11, just all these things, they have all these classified documents, and it makes people wonder, like, maybe what you don't want us to see is so juicy and so, like, you did some dishonest things, maybe to make this thing happen, that there's probably a reason you want to keep that secret, and it's not a good reason.
Yeah, protecting the guilty instead of protecting the innocent.
That's a perfect way to put it. How do we know? Yeah. And the only way we do know is if we're able to see those documents. And I think there's a statute of limitations is like an amount of time that something is in place. So some patents have a statute of limitation. So like Nintendo, for example, I hope I'm not dating myself with that, but the first Nintendo system had like a patent. And when it ran out in the early, I think it was like 2000s, then other companies could start making the like not Nintendo brand, but the same machine that you could play the games on. So it's like a limit of time where something can't happen. That's just with patents. But with classified documents, a lot of times there is a statute of limitations that things can stay classified and then they have to declassify them. But the weird thing about the Martin Luther King assassination and the JFK assassination is they kept extending that because I think it was supposed to expire, years ago. And it kept like, no, there's still things that we can't let you to see. It's against, national interest. And we have to think like this happened in 1962. What is there in there unless it's a pattern of maybe wrongdoing from the government? I don't know because I don't know what's in there. But
and I don't think there's anybody that was involved that could be like prosecuted anymore. I think all of the people that were involved have passed on by now. So like, who are you protecting?
That's interesting. Yeah. But it's interesting because even though that's the case, there are still people fighting to keep these things classified. And then it makes you wonder, what are you trying to hide? Why is it that you want to keep this? And in my mind, I don't know what's in there. I've never seen them. But I have to think that maybe what they're so scared of is if we can see a pattern of a government willing to lie or willing to shape a narrative to get something they want, then we can say, maybe it's happened again. When you're in a court of law, sometimes you'll have, if you're suing someone, you'll have a character witness. And what a character witness does is, even though they might not be involved with the crime, like say, Rachel, you stole something from me and I'm suing you for stealing something. And you have a character witness who goes on stand and basically is like, no, I've known Rachel forever. And she has never stolen anything. In fact, one time I left something at her house and she returned it. So you build like a pattern of, okay, well, if Rachel hasn't stolen before, maybe she didn't steal this time. So it's kind of like that with these documents, right? If we can see that the government has a pattern of doing some pretty sketchy things, well, maybe we're going to start questioning more things and more things. And if I were the government, I would be a little bit nervous about that, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, if the government was involved, and I think it's been admitted now that the CIA was involved in assassinating Kennedy for reasons, but I mean, if the government is doing those things and we're not allowed to know about it, then how do we reform the government to stop that from happening in the future? So, I mean, it was wrong then, but then nothing happened, nothing changed, nobody was punished. Well, except for the guy that they blamed, who that's a whole other story.
We don't know. That's the whole problem. We don't know because we don't know. And we should be able to know.
That's why, like, I guess if thinking like a criminal government agency, if I did want to get rid of someone in power and not have anyone come after me or reform my agency, I would look to have one guy, a lone gunman, be available to take all the blame.
And
so
we don't want to get into the context of the actual, just in general of the importance of keeping the documents, just so we can keep on track there. There's so much that the government can get away with if the people aren't allowed to know the whole truth, or we're only allowed half truths, or we're only allowed these little snippets of things. And, with the assassination, again, we have this big Warren Commission, which was this, huge document of all the things that happened. If we can look back at that and say, okay, well, then why did they say that this happened when it didn't happen? There's a lot of implications, even though this did happen in 1962. And with Martin Luther King as well, there's some things we know happened there that we know that the government was wiretapping his phone, which back then, it's funny because that word feels foreign now. I don't know if we remember to wiretap someone's phone. Didn't you have to go in and actually put something in something? Now everything's so easy.
I think it involved unscrewing a
phone.
And then putting a bug,
not a cell phone, a phone that is on your wall or on your desk. Yeah. It was old school, as they say.
Technology, all different. But they were listening in and they're not allowed to.
And they're not allowed to. So things like that, things where we're finding out oh my goodness, things a lot of us already suspected, but declassifying these documents are very, very important because it's setting a standard of transparency in government, which we don't have. The government does not like operating above board where we can all see it. And there's a quote somewhere by someone, I'm sure, that says it better than I'm going to say it, but it's that, the good things happen in daylight. Good people don't operate in the dark. I'm sure you could say, I think there is like a pretty poetic quote like that, but that's basically, if somebody's going to do something bad, they're not going to do it. They're going to hide it from you.
The quote that I think of is sunlight is the best disinfectant.
I hear that. That's good.
That's true for like wounds, but also if there's rot in the government, if there's something going on that shouldn't, there's corruption, then the best way to solve the problem and heal the government and fix it is sunlight, transparency.
Yep.
We have to know about it first. First, we have to identify the problem, so you have to be able to see it. And if everything is classified, why is it classified?
Exactly.
Is there really a good reason for the government not to tell us what they're doing when they're answerable and accountable to us, the people? So you have to make a really strong case for something, in my opinion, to be classified. I mean, I almost would say I don't agree with classifying anything.
Yeah.
Except very, I guess
keeping
in very
people
limited.
safe, like addresses or something like that. I'm sure there's a reason I'm not thinking of, but just to wrap it up, I don't know what's going to be in these declassified documents. It could be what I like to call a nothing burger, where it's just nothing.
It could be
you
nothing.
have to remember back then there was no electronic paper trail. So like if somebody threw away or shredded a piece of paper, that piece of paper is gone. So I don't know if there's anything that's going to be like a smoking gun, as they call it, in those documents. But it's a symbol, which I think is really important, which is that we need to stop letting the government operate, in darkness. We need to be transparent. Government needs to be transparent. So I think that's the important thing to take away from this. But we will leave it there. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe and share the podcast with friends. And until next time, we will talk to you later.
See you later.